Howdy, everyone. It's Megan Barnhard of All Writers Welcome, the ultimate writing group. And I have a question for you. Is your writing stalled? Because if so, I have some insight for you today. There might be one big thing that's a small idea, but it takes a lot to work on. But there might be one area, I guess, for you to look in. So for you to search. If you're not sure what's stalling your writing and you think, oh, I've got writer's block and it's this and I don't have time, there might be one larger cause, and I want you to consider, and we'll talk about it today. And that is your motivation. Yes, your why for writing. That might be what's stalling you if you haven't defined your why, or if it's not a good enough why. So I want to talk about the power of motivation and also some practical tips for how you can get some more motivation. So first, I'll start with a story that is about my motivation for writing my first ebook and publishing it. I am somebody who has always loved starting projects and not so much love finishing them. And I wonder if a lot of you can relate to them, right? I love that first spark of idea. And then I even sometimes love the hard work of the middle, where you're just developing your ideas. But getting to the end is never something that's really appealed to me. And as somebody who really values writing, I've also had that fear of putting my writing out into the world, because what if there are mistakes and what if it's not as good as it could be? So the finishing part has always been a struggle for me. In 2015, I got an email from a friend whom I had just kind of given some casual writing help. He was working on a story and I had given him some suggestions and some practical exercises. And he emailed me and he said, "Hey, remember all those exercises you gave me? I think those really helped, and I'm going to turn them into a game. And I think this would just be like a great thing to put out in the world." No, he wasn't asking my permission to turn them into a game. He was telling me he was turning them into a game. And it was even asking me, did I have one more idea? Because if so, that would turn the 5 things I had given him into 6, which would be perfect to put on a die. And I thought, wait a minute, there's something really wrong with this picture, right? These are ideas that I am happy to share with people. I want people to use them. But if it comes to somebody who's going to create a product and it's going to go out on the world and it's going to have a name on it, I thought, no way can this happen that he's going to do that. And bam, I got motivated. I went on Amazon and I got Steve Scott's great nonfiction book, How to Write and Publish a Nonfiction Book That Readers Will Love in 21 Days. I know it's an insanely long title, but it works. It's full of practical tips and advice. And I took material that had been floating around in my brain that I knew worked with the writing clients I had shared it with the friends I had shared it with, and I got it all down in one place and I turned it into an ebook and I hit publish, and I was scared out of my mind. And I didn't do it in 21 days, but I did it in about a month and a half, which was amazing to me. And the reason I did it was because I was motivated. Every time I wanted not to sit down at my desk and write, I would think about somebody else taking my ideas and, putting them out in the world. And I went, no way, right? I need to put those ideas out. So that was a kind of negative motivation, right? That was, this opportunity has arisen and somebody else will take it. And even though kind of in the back of my mind, I knew that wasn't really going to happen. And I knew that I could have spoken up and said, hey, that's not cool, right? There were ways I could have addressed this and made the motivation disappear. But it was enough of, it like lit the fire under me enough. I didn't want to solve the problem in another way. So that's something interesting about motivation too. Your motivation can be a little bit of a stretch. It can be a little bit of a force where you know there isn't really going to be a bad consequence, but you suspend disbelief so that you can make that a useful tool. All right, so that was a negative motivation, but it got me moving and I knew really clearly why I was working. But I have another motivation in my life for writing, and it's really positive, and it's that I write stories for my niece. Every year for her birthday, I write her a story, and they've gotten increasingly longer, and I've just published the most recent one. That was my latest ebook publishing back, I guess it was a week and a half ago. Very exciting. More on that in the group in a bit. I'll share some of my experiences. But that's a really positive motivation. And again, when I'm not wanting to write, when I am staring writer's block in the face, I am motivated to get over it. I'm motivated to keep moving because I know I want to give her something fantastic. All right. So motivation is absolutely key, but it's not enough, of course, just to say, I want to write because I want to be an author. The more specific you can get, the more motivated you will be, whether that's something negative, I really want to leave my job. I want to leave my 9 to 5. I want to make the author thing work. That's a strong motivation. I want to write for somebody in my life. I want to tell a particular story. I'm the only one who, I'm the last person who can tell this story about our family. That would be so motivating. So the first question to ask yourself when you're stalled is, why am I working on what I'm working on? And I want to give you permission to stop working on a book, a story, a writing project if you are no longer motivated. If you don't have the investment, it's not worth it. It takes so much time and effort and energy to write, to take your writing all the way through the revising and editing process. If you're then going to further publish it, all of these things take time. They're very doable. You can work through them step by step. But if you're not really motivated, if you don't really love what you're working on, I give you permission to set it aside. As a writer, you are absolutely allowed to leave some things as first drafts and just to shelve them, to say, that was a fantastic exercise, or I got something wonderful out of just writing that draft. You do not have to finish everything you start. So if there is something weighing down on you and it's not, you're not feeling motivated, you can't find that motivation, by all means, let it go. Okay, so now let's zoom in a little bit. If you're looking for motivation for a particular part of the writing process, this is where having goals is really going to come into play. So now I'm going to switch the way I'm talking about motivation a little bit. The first two stories I told you were emotional motivation. I don't want a bad outcome. I do want to be able to deliver something good to somebody I care about. But not all motivation is emotional. It doesn't have to be. So if you are working on your plotting, let's say, and you go, oh, I really don't know. I did a video a couple weeks back and somebody was asking about endings. I don't know how to end my book. There are all these different options. Okay, so if that is happening for you, I want you to think about motivation in terms of your goal. Why are you writing this story? What is the message you want to deliver? What do you want people to see happen to your characters? You have built up a story that involves people acting in certain ways. And now the question is, what outcomes do you want to show that go along with those behaviors and those choices? How do you want people to walk away thinking about your story? So that's a motivation that's related to goals. But if you're really motivated to show that a certain behavior is good or bad or ugly or whatever, keep that in mind, and that will direct you toward your ending. Another practical way to use your motivation is in the revising and editing process. And there are, again, so many different choices you can make and so many directions you can go. And it's a really long, involved process. It does take a lot of work. So ask yourself, what's my motivation? Why am I working on this scene, or why am I reworking this scene? Is it because, and get as specific as you can, is it because I want to change the tone? When I first wrote it, it seems very sarcastic and I actually want it to be tender. Is it because you want to tweak the character? You don't want somebody to appear as frightened as she initially seemed, or as, insert whatever adjective there. Zoom in, get super clear on what you want to change about that scene, and that will help immensely with the editing process. So whether it's thinking about your big picture motivation, your big why of why am I writing, what is pulling me emotionally, or something practical and smaller, what's my motivation for reworking this scene, and how do I want to change it so that I can achieve that goal and I can really have people relate to my story the way I want them to, your motivation is huge. Okay, so your practical Your practical tip, your action step, the next time you get stalled in your writing process, I want you to pause for a moment and I want you to ask, what's my why? Why am I working on this right now? And you may get an immediate answer. If so, fantastic. Use that to shape your goal to move forward. If you don't get an immediate answer, I highly recommend walking away from your writing, grabbing a journal or a voice recorder, moving, going for a walk, doing whatever lets your thoughts flow, and asking yourself that question, what is my why? And then either writing longhand or talking through your answer so that you can access your deeper intuition. You can access your higher self and get the wisdom you need to continue. Because writing without a clear motivation is incredibly frustrating. And I feel like I can almost guarantee you that you will save time if you stop writing when you're suffering from being stalled and find your motivation, right? Those 5 to 10 minutes you take to find your motivation, I feel like I can almost guarantee you'll make back up with interest because you won't be in the blahs. You won't be sitting there trying to fight something. All right. I would love to hear your thoughts about motivation, why you write. If you have a specific reason for writing, I feel like that would be so powerful for you to share in the group. Is it, like a really big emotional thing? Is it a more practical motivation? Please, in the comments, share why you're motivated to write. And also, if you have any questions about motivation or getting stalled or finding your why, I'd love to hear that too, so we can keep the discussion going. All right, I will catch you all next time. This is Megan Barnhard with All Writers Welcome, and talk to you soon.